Hello, welcome to Chef Richard's Kitchen. I'm Chef Richard Miller. Well, the first day of spring is only a couple days behind us, and so what I thought we'd do is we might take and do a series of pre-Easter recipes and kind of base it on spring. And I remember, back when I was a kid, we used to eat a lot of foods that were just coming up in the spring. There were a lot of early crops. Asparagus was one, rhubarb was another, things like this. Some of your crops that come up very early. So I thought what I'd do is kind of base a series around that and some of the traditional Easter recipes. And today we're going to start out with asparagus. And asparagus is always one of the first crops up. And so we always had a lot of asparagus. Today we're going to make cream of asparagus soup. And it's really not too difficult. The thing to remember about asparagus is when you take the stalk here and you get it at the store or pick it in your garden or whatever, this bottom part, either the bottom third or quarter or something like that, probably figure a couple of inches at least, is extremely woody and tough. Get rid of it. You don't want it. Alright? Is it edible? Of course it is. But do you really want to put that, into your soup and run the risk of having, fibrous bits going around in your soup and embarrassing yourself in front of your guests? I hope not. So anyway, the first thing you do is you want to take about 2 pounds of asparagus, and that's with this removed, and break them up into about 1-inch sections in here. This is our first step. Now we're going to do this in a couple other steps. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to saute, some of those that should be sauteed, and such as the onions, and we're going to cook the asparagus down. So here's our ingredient list, and once again, I'll be happy, I'll always post it at the end of this video. So we're going to start out with a couple of, maybe a tablespoon or a couple tablespoons of oil. We're going to take, as I said, we're going to take 2 pounds of asparagus with ends chopped off and into 1-inch pieces. We're going to take about a small onion. What is that? About a cup and a half, something like that. 12 ounces of chicken broth. 2.5 cups of milk. I'm just using, the regular 2%. That's what I usually drink, here. So we're gonna have half a cup of cream, about 4 tablespoons of butter, 4 tablespoons of flour, and we're going to use this in two stages. A good clove and a half of garlic, 2 tablespoons of white wine. In this case, I'm using Riesling. That's usually what I do. 2 of my favorites that I like to make when I make my wine is Sauvignon Blanc and Riesling. And so I've got quite a bit of Riesling down in my basement cellar, and that's what I usually use. Okay. We want about 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon of thyme, about 3/4 a teaspoon of salt, and about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. All right. So the first thing let's do is I want to put a little oil in the pan, and let's go on over to the stove and let's saute our vegetables. All right. Let's give this about a minute or so to let the oil heat up. Then we're going to start off with our onion. Okay, that's getting pretty good. I'm going to give it another minute though. One thing we don't want to do is when we put the onions in there, have them start burning to a crisp. No, we want to saute them until they're translucent, maybe just a little bit browned in there. That gives them a good flavor. We want them brown, not burned. Okay. Here we go with our diced onions. And I'm just going to let them heat up and start sauteing nicely in there. Then we'll run them around a little bit with a spoon, and that'll saute them nicely. All right, the onions are starting to sweat. We're going to go a little beyond that stage. So we've got a little while yet to go. Remember, in this, we're not actually using the onions as visual appeal, as you do in some dishes. This is just purely for flavor. Okay, as you can probably see here, they're just starting to turn a little bit brown, which is good. That's going to give them a good flavor. Now let's go ahead and add our garlic. Now remember, garlic is easily burned. So we don't want to put too much heat on there, or instead of our garlic, becoming fragrant, it'll just burn. So it's getting fragrant about now. So now it's time to add the last part. We're going to add our broth. And we're going to start adding our asparagus. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to let this come to a boil. Then we're going to put in the rest of our asparagus. And we're going to cover it and let it cook down, probably 8 to 10 minutes until the asparagus is pretty well mush. I hate to use that word, but let's call it good and tender. Because what we're going to do after this is we're going to go ahead, when this is done, we're going to put this in the blender and we're going to puree it. Alright, it's starting to boil now, so let's go ahead and let's put the rest of the asparagus in. Kind of stir this in a little bit. All right, now, the thing we do next is we have to put the lid on, and we want to steam this for probably 8 to 10 minutes, something like that, until the asparagus is very tender. I said mush earlier, but let's rephrase it and say very tender. Okay? So, anyway, until the asparagus gets nice and tender, no sense in making you guys wait, I'll just go ahead and I'll cut the tape here. So, don't go far. I'll be right back. I promise. Alright, it's been about time, so let's go ahead and let's check the asparagus, make sure it's tender. How do we check it? We're going to just go ahead and we're going to slip a fork in there, and if it comes out cleanly, we're fine. Then we're going to go on to our next step, which is to put it in the blender and puree it. So let me go back to the stove again, and let's give it a try. All right. All right, it's certainly looking good. So let's go ahead and let's take one of our larger pieces here, because if the larger pieces are cooked and they're right, the rest of them will be too. So, yeah, it slips in and out very, very easily. Now, one last thing, if you want, and I always suggest you do that, is just go ahead and taste it. And that'll tell you in a hurry, is it ready or not? It's ready. So let's go back over to the counter again, and let's go ahead and let's put this through the blender. All right, now everything is cooked very well, and we're about right on the asparagus, the onion, and the garlic. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to put not exactly any, King Kong blender there. So what we're going to have to do is probably do it in two passes, which is fine. That's all right. We're going to put the mixture in here in another saucepan. Then what we're going to do is we're going to have to take and we're going to need to make a roux. And we're going to use this saucepan again to do that. And what we're going to do then is we're going to use the flour and we're going to go ahead and we're going to thicken it. So, first thing let's do, let's go ahead and let's puree it. Oh, that looks really good. Let me go ahead and take the spoon here. Oh yeah, very nice. No little foreign objects, as I call them. But if we would have had and used the entire length of the asparagus, we'd have little woody shards in there, and we don't want those. So right now that's one. All right, there's the second batch there. Okay, now I have to go ahead and I want to clean up our original saucepan because I want to take and make a roux with our spices on there, and we're going to use that, then to thicken the cream of soup. So, once again, don't go far. Okay, welcome back. Now it's time we're going to make a roux. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it out of butter and flour. And we're going to cook that down until it's golden brown. And what we're going to do then is we're going to put our liquids in there and our spices. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put that into our asparagus mixture. And then we're going to make our soup. So let me go. All right, let me go ahead and reheat my saucepan here. And I'm going to heat about 3 tablespoons of butter here. And with that, we're going to go ahead and make our roux. Okay, our butter's pretty well melted, so let's go ahead and let's put in probably about a couple tablespoons or so of our flour. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to stir this until it comes out to a light golden color. All right, there we are. That's well blended in. And by now, the flavor, it's not going to taste like flour when you take a spoonful of your soup. It's going to actually taste like soup. Actually, a little Mexican crema. All right, now I'm going to put in my last tablespoon of butter, and I'm going to put in my milk and flour mixture. Now let's put in our remaining milk. Okay, I sense a few clumps in here, so let me get the whisk. They are much better. Now let's put in our cream. Actually, what this is this fat-free half and half. Okay, it looks like this is thickening up nicely. So let's go ahead and let's mix this in with our asparagus mixture. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to mix the roux and cream mixture. We're going to mix that in with the asparagus. And at this point, we need to add our seasonings, which is our salt, pepper, thyme, and our 2 tablespoons of white wine. All right, let's go ahead and let's heat this up here. Then we'll go ahead and throw our roux and cream mixture in there, the rest of our spices, and then you ask, is it soup yet? Yep, it'll be soup. Okay, this is getting nice and warm, so let's go ahead and add our flour cream mixture here. All right, now 2 tablespoons of white wine, about 1/8 to 1/4 inch, or 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon of dried thyme, and 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. This go ahead and heat up, and then we're going to go ahead and let it simmer for a couple of minutes, and then we're ready to taste. All right, everything's been mixed together. It's thickened up nicely. The soup is absolutely wonderful tasting. Now it's time to go ahead and it's time to plate. Okay, here's our cream of asparagus soup. Now, one thing I always like to do with, cream soups like this is people suggest putting on sour cream. I actually like a Mexican crema a lot better. And so what you can do is just pour a little bit on there. Garnish with just a little bit of chopped parsley. And here you go. Now, one last thing, and I've done it, I've tasted it already, so I know it's going to be good. Delicious. You'd have no problem serving that to anyone. Remember how I sometimes say, would you serve it to your boss if he was going to determine your next promotion or not? Yes, I would. And remember, this is a very easy, it's a very early spring dish, when asparagus comes out. Although asparagus is out most all the time of the year. Now, it used to only come out in spring. So, anyway, here you are. Here's our dish for today. Once again, thank you very much for joining me. Take care. God bless. For heaven's sakes, remember, as I always tried to teach you, cooking should always be fun. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.